For a moment of silence for our community.
Father God, thank you that we can be here today to make decisions on behalf of our community. Thank you for a lovely sunny Te Rāwhiti day. God, thank you that we live in a country where we have freedom of speech, where we have freedom of religion. Let us never forget that. And let us also not forget that not everyone have that privilege. Please help us today to make decisions that are good for our community. Also help us to make those decisions in a respectful way. In your name, amen.
Amen. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Right, I have apologies from Councillor Fenn, Councillor Wilson. You got it, Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson, I move. Seconded by Councillor Akuhata Brown. All in favour? Aye. Contrary carried. Declarations of interest can come along as the agenda comes along, unless somebody has them now. And the confirmation of the minutes, page 5. Moved by Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor McLean. All in favour? Aye. Contrary carried. Matters arising from those minutes. Sorry. Yes, Councillor Foster.
Just a presentation that we had from Lisa Marie Sherritt and Casey Mallop regarding the work needed on the roads at Parakopai. I'm just wanting to know, and it hasn't been noted on any of our anywhere else in here, about the reinstatement of workmen in that area. You know, in the past, all that work was done by local roadmen, and everyone was really happy the work was done. But now, since I've gone, it's obviously deteriorated rapidly. So I just want to make sure that this is kept on the work program somewhere, and we promote getting the workmen back in that area.
Mr. Chief Executive.
Through your worship, we're currently renegotiating the local road service delivery at the moment, and we are looking at location-based resources going forward.
Councillor Seymour.
Just with respect to page 11, I just wanted to know if...
You're too fast. We're on page 5 to 8.
Oh,
no more matters arising from those first lot of minutes. Councillor Dowsing.
It's only a silly one, and it should probably have just been addressed in email, but I forgot to do it. Just the formatting on page 6 to 7. Can we make sure that the item we're moving is on the same page as the voting for? Because it was very difficult to understand what I was reading there.
Thank you. Right, page 9, the minutes of the 4th. Moved by Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor Seymour. All in favour? Aye. Contrary carried. Councillor Seymour.
Yes, I wanted a couple of updates, please, Your Worship. On page 11C, I just want to know if we are doing any work looking at banning vehicles from driving along our beaches, because this has been raised before. And Grant Vincent came to the meeting to talk to us about the 4-kilometre stretch of Puawa, but also too at Anara there was issues in the summer of motorbikes just riding for fun constantly up and down the beach. So a question about that, are we doing anything about that, and what response did we give back to Brian Hall with respect to the bomb store? Have we been in touch with him? Are we progressing that? Because he was interested to do that with his own, with publicly funded money, not our own, and to potentially have it ready by October 2019 if they got some authorisation to move ahead. So what's the status of those 2 items, please?
Through your worship, I'll have to come back to you on that, Councillor Seymour. I don't have the answers in front of me.
Thank you. And on page item 10, on page 12, I don't think it was absolutely adamant that the iwi haupo owned the land. There was quite a bit of discussion, and I think it should say made rather than it's a definitive statement in 10.1 in the first bullet point.
Thank you.
So can we have made included in there, please?
Councillor Dunn? No?
I wanted to just follow something I've said previously. Are we going to create a policy around how we respond to these issues that are raised by public deputation so that we can we don't have to go through this step all the time.
Ms.
I was
Khan?
just wondering if where we'd got to on that, thanks. So we've had some teething problems with our minutes and the way that the action items are captured. We've now worked out that public deputations will be captured, all captured on the action sheet, and you will see the progress through from now on. It's been an interesting journey.
But I just respond to just I just think that we need to take the public to come in here to raise issues with us. There should be a process that goes back to them. And this meeting is 6 weeks ago, and it would appear that absolutely nothing has happened. It must be really frustrating to people. In fact, the meeting was actually the 31st of January, so it's more than 6 weeks ago. It's all of February, March and April. No, I beg your pardon, it's 4th of April. But we just need to be better at responding to our community when they are raising issues that they want to help us with. And I mean, whether the techno is the problem or not, I don't think that should be the problem, because somewhere there's a physical capturing of the data when people come in here to us. And then we don't know whether anybody's done anything with it or not. It's just not good enough.
I think deputations go back to 1989 when they were first allowed in the local government reforms.
But I mean, you know, the
But
issue of cars on beaches is about protecting our biodiversity and protecting birds from being, that are nesting, dotterels in particular.
but also be aware that they were concerned about the racehorsing because it actually moved all the pippies out for about 6 months. They migrated back into the sea. So, right.
Your worship, sorry, we're still in that space, and I did have my hand up a couple of
Yes,
times just to
councillor.
follow on. So it's just in regard to those who have petitioned us in respect to the roads, road safety, messaging, etc. I wanted to ask, I guess, maybe
Yeah, ask
Mr.
Nadine.
Wilson or CE that they've given opportunities to move their concerns, be it into, you know, I guess government spaces. You know, is there some kind of educated opportunity we have where we could, you know, say this could be pursued by them going to the transport agency? So, you know, and they petitioned us because we are managers in our local region, but some of these issues, they would help us in petitioning or advocating forward.
So through your worship, from the last deputation that we had around highway safety, Mr. Wilson has since met with that member of public to discuss what avenues she can have, rather, and not necessarily coming to council with a public deputation, but also some other ways that we can support her. But also through your role through the Regional Transport Committee, that is your direct connect up with NZTA around these safety issues, and could be using that more as a forum within which you can get some answers, movement around safety measures in the region, and then also through his worship as a collective and through local government New Zealand. There are lots of ways that you can support public in those matters. Can I just respond in terms of that, the matter around public deputations? And so, so I agree with what's been said around the feedback loop when people do come to present to council. So we will get some procedures in place. But one thing we need to just be mindful of is that we don't necessarily have to respond or react to everything that comes through. So we just need to manage that so we're not being inundated with requests and the expectation that we're going to act on any of the things that come through unless directed by council.
Just one more correction, Your Worship. On page 17 under 11.8 in the recommendations, it says instruct the chief executive, etc. As part of the review committee review for the 2019 election, it should be reviewed following the 2019 biennial elections, not for.
All right. Thank you. Good spotting. Right, page 21, action sheet. Updates that aren't there, or any questions regarding any of them. All right. Long list. So we go on to 26. Got the governance work plan, which is attached for your information.
Nothing there. There's a page on that page.
Yeah. 28, committee recommendation, sorry, page 27. You want to take them separately or together? What do you want to do? Vote on them separately? I'll move. Moved by councillor Dunn. 1, 2, 3. Seconded by councillor Dowsing. Questions?
Yes, just a question
Debate?
with respect to 19138. When will the disludging of the botanical garden ponds occur, please?
It says excluding.
I know, and I'm asking, when will ponds be, because we have seen a note before that they need to be cleaned and desludged, and seeing it's excluding them, I'm asking when will it happen?
Through your worship, the debate at Community Development and Services Committee recognised that the desludging project is actually an operational project as opposed to a capital project. And given the financial situation around the reserves operation budget this year, we don't have the ability to carry forward funds into next financial year. So the thinking is at the moment that it will be considered again through the next LTP.
Maintenance was kept up, it wouldn't need to be done.
Yes, councillor Dunn.
We, as part of the Community Development Committee, what was recommended is that it was going to be held over to the 2021 long-term plan and then do the desludging. And our decision was, no, that's too long to wait. We want it to happen before then. Is that? Yes. That's why it's been kept out, because we would like to see it happen before the next long-term plan. Is that not correct? Did I get that wrong?
Through your worship, that wasn't my understanding from the meeting, but that may be where the councillors got to in their thinking. The issue we have with the reserves budget is that we have a very tight budget, which doesn't allow for a lot of unscheduled work to be done. So this project does put pressure on that budget.
All health and safety. Councillor Wharehinga. Councillor Wharehinga.
Yeah, I think where we got to actually, I know where we got to in regards to that debate was that that decision that Councillor Dunn had outlined around deferring that work until 2021 wasn't satisfactory from the committee, and that we did actually want, and the chair can correct me if I'm wrong, that we wanted solutions, other solutions that weren't that far out. So we weren't wedded to a specific solution. The solutions coming back could possibly be things like working bees, like Councillor Seymour had said, or having the further consideration in regards to LTP. However, we had requested for that piece of work to come back to the committee in regards to the solution.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all in favour? Aye, contrary carried. The draft governance work plan. No farewell for councillors or mayors in there? Right, moved, all in favour? Aye, contrary carried. Then we go to, wow, page 20, sorry. Questions, yeah?
Page 3, workshop, timeframe to be considered or whatever, but there's absolutely nothing, no indication as to what's going on.
Nadine?
Oh, so through your worship, so that we should hopefully, we will confirm some dates tomorrow out of the JMA meeting.
Okay, councillor Dunn?
I just wanted to ask a query on page 29 where it says speed management zoning. Is that type of report where the public deputation about reducing speed limits at Wainui, Okatu, etc. Does that fall in that category? Or is that something separate altogether?
So through your worship, there are two speed management reviews that are currently underway at the moment. The first one is the one for Wainui, Makarori, Tirapodi is the State Highway one, and that's looking at all of State Highway 35, so that's underway. The land management zoning one that we're talking about there is that we want to review the Gisborne urban areas where council is the road controlling authority, so that's the next one that we want to start after that one.
All right, all in favour? Aye, contrary, carried. I know I done it twice, but councillor Burdett asked the question. Waipawa Water Extraction Infrastructure Policy. So this is a policy to ensure the integrity of the stop bank. Right, moved by councillor Dunn, seconded by councillor Foster. All okay? Do you need any explanation? So it's a pipe that goes over the bank. It needs to be removable instead of going in there. And the current ones will need to move, do they? Because
So through your worship, with the Waipawa Stop Bank upgrade scheme, we're finding a number of pipes that go through the stop bank that we previously either weren't aware of or they're not to the condition that we thought that they should be. Part of going forward is working with the water users around what infrastructure goes back in on the new parts of the stop bank, but then also looking at the number of users who are requesting access to the Waipawa River for irrigation, making sure that what goes in is fit for purpose for us going forward.
Yep, yes, councillor Dowsing.
Thank you. Through the mayor, can I ask, what is the risk involved if we don't have adequate warning time for them to be removed? Indicates that there's risk to the face of the bank and various others if they're still in place in a heavy water event, and that it's a potential that they could all potentially still be in place if there was a lack of warning.
Through your worship, with a lot of the heavy rain warnings, we get 2 to 3 days notice, and that'd be part of the consent is that when we have those heavy rain warnings, that those pipes are removed. So this is for extreme events. Most events, they would stay where they are, but where we have heavy rain warnings, that's where we would ask for their infrastructure to be removed. The issue that we have is with the lay flat pipe, if it's there and a heavy flood event goes through, it can rip out the foundation. So it's bedded down in the bank on the water side. The issue is if that gets ripped out, that those pipes will then cause damage as they flail around. It's not likely that it would cause catastrophic damage, however, it would cause damage if they were left in. Most likely scenario though is that they will break and be ripped off by the flood. So it's a very low likelihood of having a risk with this type of infrastructure.
Thank you, councillor Foster.
Yeah, David, we're trying to promote cycleways on top of our stop banks as well. How will the cycleway and the activity on a cycleway affect the pipes going across the top?
So through your worship, lay flat pipes lay flat when they're not in use, so it is only sort of, millimetres thick. When they're being used, common practice across most other areas where cycles are, you ramp over the top of them as they go, which everyone's fine with. So you're talking about basically a speed bump to be able to ride over it.
Councillor Cranston. Yep, councillor Seymour.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, are there any places where tile draining is currently going directly into Waipawa, or is any tile draining in the area going into other drains before it goes to Waipawa?
Through your wish, I'll defer to Nick Gordon, who's our river engineer. Do you want to come up, Nick?
Good morning. Yeah, there is proposal to pump tile drainage into the Waipawa, but I don't know of any that currently is draining straight into the Waipawa. There would be gravity fed through culverts that are council's drainage network.
Thank you. Just to be clear, so you're saying to go through culverts rather than up and over? Thank you. That makes sense.
For the 13 unknown ones, what are you going to do about those?
So part of what we're working through, so through your worship, part of what we're looking at is where we're finding when we're doing the stop bank upgrade is where we find things, we're pulling them out rather than leaving them in, and then working with those landowners with what those solutions are going forward.
Well, their solution is to go with the new policy over the bank, isn't it? Well, not necessarily.
Through your worship, some of them have been abandoned as well. So there's just pipes running through that we're finding that actually even the landowner who's alongside doesn't even know that some of those things are there. So we're pulling those out as we go through.
Great. Any other matters? Yes, councillor.
Just firstly, I thank you for giving us the opportunity to view the stock bank. It was a great day actually and learned lots. It's on target in the space of, winter coming, work in that space. I just was interested to know. A lot of people ask, we're getting it done, but it's a big job. So how's it looking?
So through your worship, stop bank work, we've had a really good run of weather through May. We're starting to run out of weather now. So it's ground conditions, it's getting a bit damp. So I understand the contractors are finishing up this week. They'll close down the site for winter. Everything has been seeded now. So the grass has all been sown. They'll pick it up again in October to be able to start working through again, but they are progressing really well. We're really happy with the progress so far.
Thank you for the paper. I have got a mover and seconder. All in favour? Contrary carried. Local government remits, page 37, and there are 3 remits in front of you. The decisions will give the representatives the voting directions. Right?
Through you, your worship, no.
Huh?
These aren't the remits from Local Government New Zealand. These are seeking support of council so they can go before Local Government New Zealand.
Yeah, it'll do both, whether they go ahead or not. Okay, right, first one. So you support the one about road safety? Okay, any debate on that? Who wants to debate that road safety is not important? Right. Local government remit relating to beauty industry. Oh, beauty
That.
queen, yes.
That is a rude comment to make. This discussion has been ongoing for years, and I'm glad to see it here because at the Health Board, we have had this discussion before that who should be responsible for this. And I really support this because from a health perspective, it's very important. And it will be great to have a national policy so that we don't each have to do a bylaw. So from a health perspective and a council's perspective, excellent.
Because once upon a time, the barbers weren't actually licensed under the Food Act or something, eh? And now they have to sterilise their thing because they used to go one cootie to the other. Not that they did that. They had good practices. Councillor Dowsing.
I'd say this is far more significant in the fact that they use the treatments are subdermal now. They're using needles, and there's the sharps and blood, and it's a much more at-risk industry than a barber, or high-risk industry. Sorry. So yeah, I think it's very important, and I know it'll come at a cost to our business to implement the changes, but we'd be happy to.
Like the Botox. I like the Botox. Right. Remit for funding policy framework for adapting to China. Councillor Seymour.
Thank you. I was just wanting to observe with respect to the beauty, is that going to capture tattooists and in particular mobile ones who are resident in our coast township and have been there for quite a long time? So just a note that maybe when we send some feedback in, some follow-up, it was particularly when Councillor Dowsing made his comment about the tools of trade, it should apply there too.
Right.
Move all 3.
Right. No debate on the last one?
Nah, all good.
Very important. Okay. All in favour?
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We're moving along. To the next page. Next lot on the agenda. Got that?
What page?
254.
I'll second.
The commissioner.
Yep.
All right. Appointing people means hands up. So all in favour? Unanimous? Okay. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Variation to roading contracts, page 63. From knock to some innocuous system.
I'll move.
Move. Now, Dave, is it going to produce better roads? That's the question. The public wants reassurance that we're not mucking around.
Through your worship, the purpose of this paper is around making sure we have financial delegation to carry on the works that we currently have underway with the Provincial Growth Fund and the flood damage that we have. There are further papers coming to you at your next council meeting about the terms and conditions of the variation for levels of service and those things that we'll be workshopping with you at a future meeting. So this one's around making sure we have the ability to pay for the works that we currently have underway because it's outside the original cost limits that we had in the NOC contracts at the start.
I think it's very important, you know, like we like to get the roads done, but we actually haven't got the money yet. And it's taken 9 months and I've let the minister know that, you know, even he would be frustrated that the money has not arrived. And it is important that we actually continue to lobby. Now, importantly also is that we actually get a note from them to say that they've acknowledged that we are doing the roads and that we are spending our ratepayers' money. We're actually borrowing money to actually do the roads in the hope that we will be recompensed fully, not just the capital amount that we spent, but the cost of implementation, the staff time, and the interest rates, you know, those sort of things. Yes.
And we need to add that, not just like it's a hope, it is consistent with promises.
How can bureaucracy hold us up? Your worship. 9 months, as you said.
Ask this bureaucracy. Yes.
Can I just ask a question to Mr. Wilson, that when you're doing these budgets, do you allow for events like we had at Queen's Birthday in these budgets?
So through your worship, in the long-term plan, we have $3 million budgeted per year to pay for flood damage work. We've raised that to 4 million now going forward. So we have that amount for an event like Queen's Birthday. We can't foresee things like that when the contracts were put together. But we didn't foresee them when we put the 10-year plan together that we were going to have that much damage on the roads.
Can I just observe in the paper, with respect, that we should note that it was the 4th and 11th of June 2018 and keep writing that it was 2018 in the second line of the summary. It talks about like Queen's Birthday in September. So there were, you know, 2 events, the 4th and 11th of June in September 2018, and nowhere do we say 2018, either on the next page at 4. So we need to keep that in front of people. Otherwise we forget.
Councillor Burdett.
Your worship, can I ask David, tell me in terms of spot meddling, is this all part of the contracts that we allowed to be tendered for and work done on roads? The reason I asked, I went to East Cape the other day to look, and while the contractor's done a pretty good job, there's a lot of spot meddling on the road, and I assumed when we issued the contract, we were going to do the whole length of the road.
So through your worship, spot meddling is part of the way that we manage our roading network. We don't remedal a whole road, we do spot meddle. It's part of how we manage our budgets going forward. So we do case by case basis, looking at what the road is, looking at how there are sections, and then it depends which team goes out in order to do that part of it. So yes, we do spot meddling as part of our maintenance.
One of the frustrating things also is that we have to apply for resource consents for most of the work that we do on the road, especially during flood damage, and you know, what people want is just to actually get back home and go to work. And I'm sure that because the road is already designated a road, it should actually have a rule in the revised plan that these things should be sorry, not rude, what's it? No, permitted activities. Hey, so comment on that?
Sorry, emergency works, Your Worship. So if there is damage to the roads caused by a major event, then the team can go in and do that without having a resource consent.
But if it goes on for too long, then they have to apply for resource consent because then it becomes, because it's been sitting there too long.
So through your worship, when we have an event, we do not need a resource consent to open roads. We're able to do our works as of right. However, that's only to open roads. It's not to make them good again. So just like everybody else, we need a resource consent. And a lot of the sites we currently have open, we also need to have engineering input to make sure that things can stay where they're going to stay. If, however, the road deteriorates further and it becomes unsafe, we're then able to go back in without waiting for a resource consent. But the resource consent process we are working through with our consenting team, and they have a global consent sitting in front of them that they're processing at the moment, which for one consent will cover off close to 200 sites going forward just of the works we have, but it will also mean that going forward works of that type we won't need individual resource consents for as well.
So we can spend more money on tar and stones than on paper. Right, great. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thank you. A little bit outside the paper, but Dave, I mentioned quite a few months ago that there's a real problem with the Hamatua Bridge. The kids at Wainua School doing fantastic beautification down around that bridge, and they're about to do some more, but it's a mess of graffiti at the moment, and it goes along the pavement and the bottom of that bridge. And I did put in a request to get it sorted, but nothing happened. Is that the responsibility of NZTA now? Or how's that going to work? And how do we get it, excuse me, solved?
So through your worship, that is an NZTA asset. The graffiti under the bridge is something that we're working through at the moment around getting it prioritised. So a slight conflict with some board chair at Wainua Beach School, so I'm very well aware of what the school are doing there. But that is something we are working through with the agency to get sorted as soon as possible.
Councillor.
Just, David, in regard to roading and safety maintenance, those absolutely work together, right? I mean, biggest concerns in this region currently is obviously the safety aspect of our roading when maintenance is being done on them. How are we, I guess, asserting ourselves to the public, you know, when we are maintaining our roads, the safety aspect of it, because I guess in all the time of discussing roads, we're aware that we've got money we need to spend to keep them maintained and upgraded. Quarry Rock, we're trying to resource so it's, you know, keeping within budgets. But the safety mechanism of our maintenance plans, you know, how well are we kind of ensuring our, you know, that message is in there, because they just go hand in hand, right? Maintenance and safety, from both the workers on the road space to our ratepayer understanding it.
Through your worship, safety is the biggest starting point for everything we do on the roads. However, I would like to clarify that when we talk about safety, it's making the roads safe is the first thing we do. If there's a safety improvement, that's something that we put through for sure. Our roads being uncomfortable with potholes isn't necessarily a safety thing, and people say it is safety. It's a lack of maintenance that needs to be done. Safety improvements are making sure that the road is as safe as possible with right lighting, right sight lines, making sure there's barriers where need be. Those are the issues that are safety. When it comes to maintenance, if there are things that lack of maintenance makes a road unsafe, that's the number one priority for us to get those roads back safe again. So safety is the first thing we do when it comes to the road.
Sorry, it's because what I want people to understand is that our roading is challenged, but just because of the geology of it. It's moving, all of that. So are we getting better in that science space to making roads that can cope? And because we know we're constantly filling potholes in the space of it. So is there a better science we're looking at? Is there more, you know, we could be pushing at our roading network, bigger picture people to say this region particularly needs a lot more work because of the type of geology we work with?
Through your worship, a lot of the improvements we're making to the roading space going forward, we talk about resilience, and it's doing that differently. So if you look across the network, you'll see that we've been doing bigger planting in some areas to help hold them back, to make sure they stay where they are, making sure that we're looking after those land flows and making sure that the right fix is going in at the right time. So that is the way that we're doing that as part of our routine maintenance.
Sorry, can I just wanted to add in terms of the safety discussion, Worship, that while we know that there's our roading issues and maintenance stuff to get on top of it, we also, you know, the approach to safety is also about the condition of your car and driver behaviour. And so with our NZTA funded position, Di, who's responsible for safety, there's the other initiatives that is around awareness of speed, awareness of other drivers, that those are the other factors that we should also not lose sight of too.
Okay, we're getting a bit off subject. This is really about the variation. Moved by councillor Dowsing, seconded by councillor Foster. Moved by councillor Foster, seconded by councillor Dowsing. Well done on the quarry stuff in Awapuni Road. They're really appreciating the smoothness of Awapuni Road. Yeah, and the hospital roundabout, but nothing up hospital. Right, all in favour? Aye, contrary, carried. Major project advisory groups, page 71. Lots of people.
Your Worship, I'd like.
Might as well have one committee of council. Yes, councillor
Yeah,
Seymour.
I did send a note around to councillors last night. I just wanted, I mean, the intent's absolutely perfect and neat, well, nothing's perfect, but it's a good idea. But when you look at the number of councillors that expressed an interest, there's a whole pile of names on many of those committees. And I would just like to promote that the number in item 2 of the recommendation is 4, because if we get someone away, then we've only got 2 councillors there. And I think that 4 councillors wouldn't overload the committee. And I mean, it's all about councillors being interested in what's going on. So 3 is quite limiting, and I understand that a limit is where council officers want to come to. But I do think that councillors should have the opportunity to participate, and it's going to be hard enough to get it down to 4, I suggest, from the numbers. So I would be happy to move, but I would shift 3 to 4 in those 2 recommendations.
Okay, the move and seconder for 4. Councillor Stoltz.
Thank you, Worship. When I read this, I thought, great, but I question our timing. Why do we not, at this stage, have everyone be involved? You bring everything back to all councillors. None of us might be sitting around this table come October 12. So why don't we wait for this process and do it properly with the new council? So just a suggestion, I think, why doubling up, making little committees now? We are in July, August, September, council winds down in election time. So my recommendation would be is, why don't we just report all these things to council as a whole, keep it tidy, and then once the election is finished, we make up these committees, and I support the 4. But
Okay.
that's what I would like to add.
Why don't we just note the paper? All right?
I'll move that.
No, I'm like, as the first move, so that it keeps the process moving after October, I would be happy to note the content of the report and implement this post elections, but leave the 4 in, and then council officers have got an idea where they're going, and the process can keep on going. Otherwise, it'll take them 3 months before the paper gets.
Makes perfect sense.
So,
Okay, so this is post-November. October's a bit soon.
note the
Post-November.
contents of the report and implement the recommendations post the local government elections. And then 2 and 3 have the word for elected members.
All right? Good thinking. All in favour? Contrary, carried. Oh, councillor Dunn.
In terms of the advisory group and the additional people that add these, are they paid to attend these meetings? As in that, not councillors, the other ones? No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Volunteer. Great participation when they volunteer. Right. We go to dogs. Yeah, we've got it. Councillor Seymour
And Malcolm McLean.
and Councillor McLean. Page 93. Is there confusion on the last one, Coral? No.
No, I said.
They both agreed
the
with
mover and
councillor
seconder agreed
Stoltz's
to amend
comments.
the recommendation.
Kapai. 93. Oh, you sure? They're very expensive.
I second.
All right. Now, I get a few calls now and again when it comes to dogs. You wish that you could tell the truth sometimes, because they have 6 dogs and they say the fees are too dear. And really, it costs more for vets and feeding, I understand, wouldn't it? Than the dog fees.
But there's no need for 6, unless it's working dogs, seriously, or breeding dogs. There's no need for someone to have 6 dogs in an urban situation. So working dogs come. Working dogs come at a discounted rate. So,
That's uncalled for.
Councillor, my comment or Councillor Dowson?
Thousands.
Thank you. I just had one question about it, Your Worship. It just seemed to me, and I know we have seen it, but you always see these things the more and more times you read them. A normal urban, and including those in rural areas, not required for rural livelihood, 106. And then a selected owner policy, 106. So it didn't seem to be any credit for the selected owner.
Why is that?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Did this go through the environmental plan?
Yes, it did, and that's what I say, Your Worship. You can read this stuff, and the more times you read it, the more things you find
Yep.
that you want to
So
ask a
we're
question
asking why.
about.
Mr.
Thank you, through your worship. The selected owner policy is actually $77.50. Sorry, the 106 that you referred
Oh,
to,
beg your
Councillor
pardon,
Seymour.
that was last year. Thank you. Yes, actually, when I think about it, I found that when I was reading it eventually.
Thank you, Your Worship. Listen, when I was doing a bit of collecting for the Endeavour replicas, a lot of the older people, superannuitants, are the ones that had little dogs, and you could just see when you went into their homes just how much these little animals meant to the owner, and a lot of them were just single people. And I just feel that, you know, the cost of their dogs registration is going up. And these little dogs are looked after like kids, mate. And I just feel that probably we shouldn't probably increase those for the superannuitants too much. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's still $57. If they're only on a superannuitant's allowance, it's $57.
$1 a week.
It's still, and food and vet bills, they are all add up.
Just one clarity, just one clarity too, is if there's a family with dogs, so 2 dogs, and one superannuant, does that qualify just by having one superannuant in that household for the superannuants?
Thank you, through your worship. It depends who the dog is actually registered to. So it might be registered to if the grandparent is or the superannuant is living in that building. These fees are set and have been consulted. Actually have to go out. It's a modest rise in terms of the cost of living, and it's to cover our costs in terms of performing and holding those registrations. So in answer, it depends who the dog is registered to, what fee applies for a mixed household of superannuants and younger people.
Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to have seconded this paper after Uncle Bill. I think also we need to start having kind of wider conversations in regards to dog management in our community. And what I'm talking about is kind of carving out spaces that are specifically for dog owners and their dogs. not only for dog owners and their dogs, but also people that actually are scared of dogs. Things like carving out certain places down at our beach for dog owners to be able to take down their dogs, so that people with dogs can take them down to the beach, and those that do not like dogs can specifically avoid those areas. Dog parks, for instance, and things like that. I think we need to start getting wider in regards to our dog conversations, because every year we have conversations about dog fees. It'll be nice to start widening our strategic view and our strategic conversations in regards to dogs.
Yeah, that'll come in your spatial plan, where dogs can go. All in favour? Contrary, carry. Page 98, Chief Executive's report on council activities, April to May. Another comprehensive report. We've had some updates this morning regarding matters that are under review. So are there any questions, updates? We really need to get this, the wolf plan to the council. It's wolf plans, Toko, Hicks Bay, yes or no, but that's different. We need to actually get the council to accept the report, adopt it, support it or not, and let the communities use the report as a council report. Councillor Stoltz.
Something caught my eye that I know nothing about, and I thought I will ask a question around it. Our fuel and generator plan on page 106. Can you give us a bit of more information around that? Thank you.
So through your worships, you may recall I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago, actually it's even probably 2-3 years ago, when we had the incident and there was an electricity shortage. And at that time, the decision made was to bring in some generators. And actually that the approach that council would do all that stuff isn't actually a sustainable long-term solution for ensuring that businesses and places are prepared. So this came by way of ensuring that we have a plan in place and that we can mitigate anything going forward in the future, which doesn't depend on council having to support the district in terms of emergency situations like that, so that businesses and other places can be sustainable. So that will help us be clear on where the gaps are and what we need to do to address or support people to be prepared.
Just a supplementary question around that, because we have had similar type of discussions at the hospital where they have to keep theatres running, places going, ICUs running. And I was just, when I saw that, thought, I wonder if there's we are also talking to them. So when we've got our plans in place, you know, we can work together or have better buyer power. So is that discussion happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the key group, so the process will be, this will come to the coordinating executive group, of which Mr. Green is part of, and then it comes up to you as a group.
Councillor Dowsing.
Thank you. I thought it was good reading, but on page 103, the Environment Aotearoa 2019 themes and issues. There are two pieces in this image which I thought were really, really fighting against each other, which was in the things we value section. We have a list of wonderful things, and then we slide economy in there, as if economy is something that has a value that could be equivalent to health or identity or nature or culture. I see economy as a driver for the problem, not as a thing we value. Likewise, at the top of the page where it begins, it says New Zealand has high greenhouse gas emissions per person. Well, I don't think our people are producing more greenhouse gas emissions. I think our economy is designed to increase more gas emissions. So somehow they've managed to get economy at the wrong end of this diagram. So yeah, here I see strategic direction that is actually going to still leave our major driving force for the problem as something we value. So yeah, just a comment on that image. It doesn't make sense to me in the way it flows. Thank you.
the government one. Councillor Foster, Councillor Seymour.
Just page 109, just a query, I've got a couple actually, and it's under health and safety. Part of our review of council's lone remote worker system has included a trial collaboration project with CSL monitoring the safety of staff working remotely. Could you describe what that is? When I read this, I just was,
Yep.
yeah.
I can answer that.
What I'm going, I was going to defer to Jane to Mr. Beatty. But has the
Yeah,
detail.
through the chair. So we have a number of workers who work out obviously in remote locations, and we've got a number of devices that we use to track their wellbeing. And we've been operating a trial with CSL to centralise that process, and rather than having it split across the organisation. And so it's consistent monitoring of those devices and those people as they're out in the field. It's a number of different devices. We have in-reach devices that do operate via satellite and using GPS location. Yeah, that's correct.
And the other one?
The other one is on page 115. Yeah, on page 115 regarding the Gladstone Road Bridge. Discussion points resolved if a railing is required by the road. The project team will come back to council with options. The other is a decision on the upstream side of the bridge. Right. Well, a couple of things. Yeah, we've got orange markers there at the moment, and I do believe there is a fence going to be built sometime, but maybe I'll get an update on that. The other thing is that I have a lot of comments of people that are passing by, seeing the finished project and seeing these orange markers still there, which looks like it's unfinished. But the build-up of dirt and bark and everything behind those orange markers is really not conducive of a brand new looking bridge. So, yeah, and the other part of that is that the other decision on the upstream side of the bridge. Now, it would be quite good if we could get a price on what that would be, so we can kind of get that in our head. And maybe, I know it's a NZTA issue, but at least, you know, now that we've got that one side looking absolutely awesome, the other side is probably even more spectacular. So, yeah, I would just like to keep this on progress, actually.
Through your worship, the Gladstone Road Bridge project is still looking at whether or not a handrail is going to go on the traffic side lane of that bridge. So no decision by the safety engineer has come back. So it's an NZTA decision around that. We have asked them that we think it's a very good idea to put one there, and we've put forward the views of council to the safety engineer. Regarding the deck of Gladstone Road Bridge, it's absolutely something that needs to be sorted and be cleaned, and that's been raised, as has the surface condition of that bridge. As you drive over it, you can feel there's still quite a few bumps and things in it. So that's something that they're working through, and the removal of the orange cones is part of that project closeout. So that's something they're working through. They're leaving them there now because there's no other barrier there, so that's why they're still sitting there at the moment. Regarding the upstream side of the bridge, there's no funding from NZTA or council to look at that at this moment, so we don't have any funding to look at removing that side of the bridge. It'd be something you'd need to direct us to do, and then we could start looking at pricing for it if you wanted us to.
Supplementary, but I have the same issues. Could they look at painting it to match the end of the new site, which would tidy it up or something?
I can raise that with NZTA. I'm meeting with them next week, so I'll discuss it with them then.
Councillor Seymour.
Thank you, Worship. I had a couple of questions which actually relate to the health and safety. So can we understand what was the outcome of the lockdown project? And I note that the Chief Executive touched briefly, it's page 109, on one moderate and one major incident. And I think our public need to know and understand that our officers are exposed to those kind of things. So without naming names clearly, we should understand what risks council officers are put to in the course of their work. I support the issue around the Tokomara Bay and Hicks Bay Wharf restoration project, but we can sort that out later. And also to the $3 million application, which we gave the Chief Executive approval to proceed on for the 100, well, it's called the 1,000-year walk bridge. And I note on page 114 under 8, it still has it there as the first payment date due on April the 18th. Beg your pardon, sorry, December the 18th, it's first payment date. Well, I think that didn't happen and we're making new applications. So could we be updated? So that's two things. One, the health and safety, and the other thing is what's the state of application? Because last time we authorised the chief executive to go away and try and find $3 million. Thanks. Thank you.
So the first one, there was a question around the lockdown. Just for clarification, that is a review of our firearms and lockdown procedures. So it wasn't
Yes, I read that.
Yep. The second part.
So did we pass it? Are we happy with the outcome? Or have
We are currently reviewing. The other part around in terms of our incident types, which outline near misses, injuries, or so there's a list there of the different types of incidences that happen. So anything, as we talked about this morning, our staff, and you can see in the number there, primarily around abuse or threat towards staff members, that's a rolling count. So there's been 136 recorded or known incidences. So we capture that through our bulk system. So we can look up, what's been happening, and can be escalated and dealt with appropriately. But as talked about last week, or week prior, an incident in the library, the abuse, domestic with between people that weren't staff, but our staff had to intervene. Thankfully, they've been trained in dealing with difficult situations, and so they were able to put in place the training that they had, and that was the feedback from the staff that they did have that training to support them. Our parking wardens on a weekly basis suffer from abuse from the public. So so the numbers are there, and what we need to do for the year end is to compare and see whether there's a trend in these stats going up.
Okay, councillor.
And the third one was around the, the 1,000-year walk bridge. So we have received funds for part of that. So there were conditions around signing contract, and you will receive an allocated amount. Where we currently are at is we are nearing 100% of the detailed design. That will give us a good indication of how much we will need to secure, and then we will go to tender and continue those discussions with our funding partner.
Yes, but is that figure, that's supplementary, that figure is not, it says 3.063 mil.
Yes.
So last meeting, or reasonably recent meeting, we talked about making application for further 3 mil. So is that figure correct, or should that be adjusted to reflect the new situation that we're in now?
So that's the funding that we have approved. Yeah. So we need additional funds to afford
another
over and above that. Yeah.
Another 3 million.
Sorry, I can't recall if it was exactly 3 million that we needed.
3 million was the general figure we used, I think, because I recall.
Need to double check, but the amount that's listed there is funding that has been approved from lotteries, SPU.
Councillor Stoltz, Akuhata Brown. No, Councillor Akuhata Brown.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to thank, firstly, a number of staff for getting back to me in regard to a couple of issues around parking and a whole bunch of things. So compliments to the staff for helping me out in those spaces. In the spatial planning workshops, I attended them, and there were some really good conversations in those spaces, and really appreciated the work done in there. And one of them was around the 1 billion tree fund. So conversations around the kind of trees for this region, looking into that. And I wanted to ask, I see in the paragraph you have for this, a couple, there is talks happening with MPI in the forestry, on the tree space, but how wide and kind of spread are we going to give community and those with a vested interest in this space to come and share their views on it? Because as I said, it came up in our spatial planning concepts around redwoods, et cetera. So I just again, we are getting better with our engagement and wanting to hear from our community around these interest spaces. So with the 1 billion trees, will that be a concept to, speak to get as many people who are interested in that space to be able to share their views and thoughts as well?
So through your worship, the 1BT program is led out of Te Rurako, so that's really in their camp and not something I would advocate that we would start coordinating on behalf of the region, but our role in that would be around the right tree, right place, so part of the spatial planning work that we're doing, which will identify areas that would be ideal for this type of economic growth. So I think the conversation that we would be having would be not necessarily about trees, but around what's the best use for that land. And so what I know with Te Rurako is that they already have people on the ground talking in the communities and with businesses around what they might need in order to access 1BT funding.
I guess I want to echo the sentiment of Councillor Downsing that economics-wise, we are looking at how do we ensure we balance our environmental protection space moving forward for this region's future, because we've learned a lot, I guess, within the climate change space. And it's kind of important that there are many people who don't want to see all things be regarded in an economic standpoint. We understand it's important, but we know we've got a lot of people concerned about the environment in this region particularly. So yeah, kia ora.
Okay, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Your Worship. As been mentioned earlier today under health and safety, it's becoming very noticeable how unsafe in areas of our CBD. We've got some characters in there, and they are characters, and they're really abusive. You daren't eyeball them because you just get a mouthful of abuse, and it's bad language. And, I just don't think, I think we really should be doing something more seriously than what is happening, because it's intimidating and it must be real scary. I mean, as you get older, you're not as brazen as you used to be, because you'd probably go up and do something about it yourself. But there's a lot of our older people in our city, and it's just unacceptable. And we even had an occasion a few weeks ago where a group of young guys actually pulled a knife on a staff member, and that's becoming totally and utterly unacceptable in our community. And I think we should take a lead and have something done about it.
What we should do is ask the police chief to come and we'll have a chat about how they're going to address some of the issues to support us.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
You can support.
Yeah,
Have an alternative.
Yeah, through your worship, I've been thinking about a number of these issues, and perhaps we facilitate a meeting of mine, so not in a formal council setting to discuss a number of these issues that Tairāwhiti or I'm used to discuss and come up to speed about where the various initiatives are, and yeah, proceed from there.
Okay. Councillor Burdett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Page 112, Township Community Plans. I had the pleasure of going to the Western Association meeting on Monday last
Great.
night.
Go.
And in turn, the question of the budget again came up, and I was told, we had another council staff member, I was informed that it has now gone to 750,000. But I thought this was the right place to ask the question. When this program was first put in place, all the township do-ups, we were told there's going to be 500,000 go into every community. And in fact, when David and I went to a meeting in Hicks Bay, the Hicks Bay community at that time decided their share of the 250 would go into the restoration of the wharf. But subsequent to that, at a couple meeting in Te Aroha, David informed me it wasn't in the long-term plan, that it was 500,000 as it's supposed to be. The 750 the other night quite surprised me, but it spread from Tikiti, Rangitukia, Te Aroha, Hicks Bay, Lawton Point. So can someone explain to me how this all came about?
Through the chair, as we discussed during our LTP deliberations, and when the final amount for township plans was agreed, we had indicated an aspiration to use that money as seed funding to look for other funding to maximise the opportunity of of the money that council is contributing to the development of those township plans. So what I think you're referring to, and I will double check, is that that may be the cost. And while we have budget allocated, our staff will be working at how we find alternative sources using what's in our budget, probably the 250,000 for Te Araroa and 250 for Hicks Bay, and how we maximise the total cost, using that 250 as seed funding to find external funding to deliver what the communities are after.
Mr. Chairman, emergency work, there is a question in terms of bridges, and I guess via you to David or Nadine, there has been a bridge on Walkers Road in Ruatoria that had serious damage done to it in the era of SSE. It has got this orange netting around it and has had absolutely no attention apart from my staff going and putting it back into place when it gets washed out. How did that come to miss in terms of the emergency work? This is 3.5, 4 years ago now. And are there other examples around the district? Because I see here, there's 300 emergency works in front of them and then another 75 as well. Plus, I do know the request for services is a long way behind. So how are we going to deal with this?
Through your worship, I'm unaware of the bridge that you're referring to, Councillor Burdett. We do have a large backload of work that we are working through on the bridges, but I'll follow that one up and get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dennison.
Thank you. Just a very short one. On page 107, under marine oil spill, council currently has no on-water capacity for marine oil spill response apart from partners who can deliver that for us, and it suggests at the end that we may need to address this. It seems to me that we have 3 perfectly good partners with vessels available, meaning that council probably don't need to buy one. Which is what it's indicating in here, that we should consider the purchase of a vessel.
Yes, it does. And that was in discussion with our man from our ROSC. So he's from Maritime New Zealand, and until we have our staff fully certified, he also helps with assessment of our ROSC. So what he's saying is, yeah, basically all other regions have access to their own, and that this is potentially a risk for us. And it doesn't say that we're going to go out tomorrow and recommend purchasing a vessel at this stage, but it's flagging that if it is more than what we're willing to risk in terms of risk appetite, then we may come back and recommend it. But Mr. Zaman might elaborate more.
Thank you, through your worship, and thank you, Nadine. It is part of just flagging the risk. As Nadine said, we had an oil spill exercise with Maritime New Zealand. We currently don't have immediate access to a vessel. We have to rely on others, and in the event of an oil spill, another vessel might be tied up dock on something else or whoever it is. And it's just flagging it as a risk that we are reliant, whereas other councils actually have vessels, small ribs, etc., to respond immediately.
Supplementary, do we not have the ability to sequester those vessels much the same as we would an oil tanker or like a fuel tanker? If we needed fuel for a generator for our civil defence headquarters, it's the same logic, is it not? We run the same risk of having a vessel where we would then need to employ a captain for that vessel, and if that person was no longer with the business at the time of the event, then we'd be in the same predicament. We wouldn't have a captain for the ship. It's a similar risk.
Thank you, and through your worship, we do, there are different powers. The harbour master has his own powers in relation, or her powers, in relation to what they can do and direct to do. It's just what the vehicles are actually doing, the vessels are doing, and who has them. So they might be involved in the spill, but there is a risk there that we don't have our own vessel, and we can direct vessels. But it's a risk when you can't respond in your own vessel.
It's basically a risk. So if in any given event, then we may not have access to them all at one time. So that, you're just balancing off whether how much of a risk you're willing to take in an incident.
And we have had a number of oil spill practices in the past where we have had the facility of boats, etc., that we could use. And quite clearly one person was fairly away as they were at the time of the civil defence fallout. So I think we should put that well on the back burner.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah.
Councillor Dunn.
Please,
I know.
I was just wanting, could you please clarify the last sentence on page 112 in regard to the cycleway along Midway Beach, please? That it's just a portion.
Yes. Okay, yes, through your worship. So the 3 metre wide concrete cycleway, just to clarify that it is not going to be a concrete cycleway all the way out to the mouth. So the concrete cycleway finishes at where the Millennium Wall is. So basically from Centennial Marine Drive or Watson Park onwards is chip seal. Lime chip.
Councillor Foster, Councillor Akora.
Right, yeah, thank you. Just page 105, the Freedom Camping Compliance Monitoring. I know there's a report coming up sometime. I'm just wanting to know when, because it's quite urgent, I believe. And also we're reviewing the Freedom Camping bylaw this year. So can I get an update on where we are at with that, please?
Through your worship, the report on the monitoring, I understand, is in the governance work plan for June, and the review of the bylaw is later in the year. I'll have to clarify the details for you, but it definitely is this year.
So is the review of the bylaw, has that come under a council governance plan? Because it's not on the governance plan for council, or is it a committee?
From memory, it's on the ComDev work plan.
Councillor Akora.
Thank you, Worship. I'm sorry, I was remiss in noting through the spatial plan meetings, one of the dialogue that was strong and isn't mentioned in our city's report is rail. And I only wanted to say that whilst we debate in this space because of its political nature, I still believe that it's important that it is in here in the space of future thinkers that may be able to get a government on board and fund, because there is a lot of feasibility studies and a whole lot of information being shared in this domain. And this council still supports rail, as noted by our mayor. So I just think it's important. There are those who still are on that journey. And so I would like to see that rail maintains a space in the space, and if there's a reason why it isn't, then I'll happily hear that. But the other issue I wanted to raise is at our meeting with Kiri Tapu Allen, MP Labour, she noted the concerns around the drug meth in our region significant. And I wanted to ask, as a council, how much information or knowledge in this space of when we do see a rise, because again, a lot of those who are on our streets currently, homeless, etc., drugs are a key player as to, hence, the choices, etc., but also what has happened for these people. So how do we have some space where that's talked about, be it to UCE or to health officers, environment policy, safe space, but are we on well, do we have enough good information knowing about the amounts coming into our region, those kind of things? So as a health board, yes, admittedly, we are cognizant of these concerns being raised at our table, but as a council regarding safety on streets, CBD, etc., that was my query, was just around, particularly that drug, because it was mentioned, we're getting quite high up in the use of it.
So that discussion was at Manaaki Tairāwhiti, where council, health, justice, schools, everyone come together and sit around the table and talk about exactly these types of problems. It was raised yesterday. And Sam Abrahama from the police and Jim Green from the hospital assured us, and we're all aware it's a massive problem in our region, and they have applied to the Consolidated Government Fund to assist with some initiatives in our region to assist whānau with meth issues. So it is not unnoticed. There's a lot of work happening behind the scenes, and health and police are very aware that we will have to, as a region, attack this problem together. Thank you.
Okay, very comprehensive questions. I just have one. Page 110. Capital expenditure, we're $10 million behind, or it could be even more. Are we going to catch you up? Because capital expenditure is expected from our community when we promised it.
So through your worship, so we're at that period year ending, month ending March. So we'll expect to see, well, I would hope to see that variance close down a bit more. But as discussed at our last meeting, we were going to bring a comparison around where we sit with our capital expenditure, just to illustrate that we are punching above our weight nationally around being able to deliver what we have planned. We did have that conversation with Worship.
But yeah, I just finished. The thing that, when you set the budget, councillors, is that all that depreciation, the cost of interest, the resources to perform the job is all budgeted for, and more importantly, is actually rated for. Right? So if you feel that the trend is that, Lindsay had one that we were spending 40 or 50 million, and we were never going to spend 40 or 50, but we got down to, I don't know, 20 or something like that. But if you still can't spend it because of the resources are not available, or it takes too long to get resource consents, then we should realistically reduce that so that it doesn't actually impinge on the ratepayers immediately. Got to be fair to the ratepayers. Councillor Stotts.
But to be fair, lots of the money that we in for capital projects are capital grants, so it's not coming from, so we only spend the money once the project starts. So it's not money that we're sitting on that we rated the ratepayer for. Heaps of that would just be from capital grants.
No, but they rate for it for that year.
Worship raised the issues of what yeah, raised that point before. Well, we did give this a good thrashing at finance meeting most recently, and did have a serious conversation about the level to which that $10 million would be spent. And I'm where the mayor is and have raised those issues. It's not the capital that the mayor's concerned about, it's the rest of what is rated to sustain that capital spend. But we did get an assurance from council officers at finance a couple of weeks ago that there would be a substantial amount of work to be completed. We have to watch this space, but your point's well made.
Right, wait for the next report. I've got a mover and a seconder. Right, Coral? It's been such a long time. Moved by Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Burdett. Okay, any other further matters? All in favour? Aye. Contrary, carried. We will have morning tea. And we'll come back to page 117. What's that fellow's name? Miles. Welcome.
Your Worship, I'm prepared to move if the Chief Executive can tell us where she can find 14,000, please. Because I do think, beg your pardon, I do think that it is something that we should be making an effort to support. And I'm sure that there is,
Told us you should dig out 14,000, no trouble.
can we hear, Your Worship, can we hear the answer to the question, please? Page 117, and I've moved, subject to hearing it.
So, through your worship, I haven't done any work on where I'm going to find the money from until a resolution is passed. So I can come back and let you know where we might try and find that money from if you agree to it.
Thank you. And I think it's important because it's one of these big events, but throughout the tenure of councils, our hosts have been very generous when we go over to the other side, to their respective cities, and the transportation, the hosting, the accommodation, the food, everything's been paid for, isn't it,
And ours is
councillor?
actually rather minuscule when you make the comparison.
Yes,
Very
very
minuscule,
grand.
actually.
Embarrassing, yeah. All in favour? Contrary? We've got a
Yes.
second, yeah. All in favour?
Aye.
Second. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. We go to the minutes that are public excluded.
I'll move we go into public excluded.
Seconded by me. All in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. You can stay, John. It's not long. Report, the minutes are here. I think are they done twice, I think. Yep, page 2. I move. Seconded by councillor Seymour. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Any matters arising from those?
Yes.
Can we just make sure we're looking at the right minutes? Because the ones that were originally, we are a public